Who wants to be a millionaire? Fidelity released their annual study. The number of 401k millionaires increased by 11.5% in 2023. What does it take to get there? Well, we'll share some insights from their data and translate that into how it can help you become a 401k millionaire. Hello, welcome back to Wealth Wednesday, our bi-weekly show to help you make better decisions with money. If you would like to learn more about our firm or our show, you can find us on the web at cfswv.com or here on YouTube at Commonwealth Financial. At the end of 2023, the ranks of the 401k millionaires rose by 11.5%. That's due in large part to a strong finish in the investment markets last year. Here's also what we learned from that study. 73% of eligible employees participated in their employer's plan. The average 401k balance increased by 14% in 2023. The total savings rate for plan participants was 13.9%, and that includes both employer and employee contributions. 37% of workers increased their contributions last year. 81% of workers received an employer contribution, and 78% of savers were contributing enough to receive their full matching contribution. I'd like to welcome in Evan Brockmeyer, a financial advisor here in Marietta, Ohio, to help break this down today. And Evan, I'll save the most important part of this for you, the most interesting fact in this report. Break that down for us.
Yeah, so just generally speaking, first of all, millionaire doesn't quite mean the same thing that it used to. And I think especially for those in my generation, it's probably going to be a bare minimum to fund retirement and what you want to do long term. So that's changed over time. But I think by and large, those numbers are encouraging to me. And the most important part of this was how continuously saving is the most important trait to building those big balances. So if you're looking at the graph on the screen, the people who save continuously for 5 years in the same plan, they have an average balance of about $250,000. Those who save continuously for 10 years have an average balance of almost $400,000. And then those who save continuously for at least 15 years have an average balance of almost $500,000. So there's some additional detail here, but differences between men and women. But what this tells us is that saving really matters. It's the single biggest factor in terms of building wealth. And we talk a lot here, both in the videos and with our clients, that on some of these other topics, but everything else is really secondary. Yes, your rate of return matters. Yes, the fees on the investments you have matter, and pre-tax versus Roth, those things, they all matter, but it's not really of any material until you commit to saving and having your money work for you on a larger basis, larger scale. Do those things really start coming into play?
Right. And we can't drive this home enough. Your savings rate is the most important thing that will contribute to your success. And it's huge as to the impact that makes. The other part of this is that when you look at compounded returns, the formula includes both what you're putting aside and also the return part of that. And the other thing that you can control with this, and we talked about this on our last episode of Wealth Wednesday, is focusing on the return rather than on the risk. And we're going to get a little mathy here. And keep in mind, this is just for illustrative purposes. This is not an actual investment. This is just doing the basic math of compounding $4,000 a year over the next 40 years at 4 various rates of return, 4%, 6%, 8%, 10%. And you can see the shape of those curves and how pursuing that return really has an impact over a long period of time. And the longer you go, the more it matters. So when we think about focusing on the return, the higher returns come from sometimes what people would perceive as the more risky assets over a short period of time. But if you can control what you're investing in, and you are, one, saving, two, taking advantage of those matches, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a second, and then your allocation, you're doing more to help yourself get to those goals, more so than if you're just relying on luck or blind faith for other things to happen in that. So I think that's another very important thing to consider as well. Evan, one of the things that stood out in this study was the number of people who were taking advantage of that 401k match and contributing enough. 78% were contributing enough to get the full employer match. What does this tell us?
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised by that number. And even though it makes sense, because I know you don't like the term free money, but I still think it's a relevant comparison or way to think of it. It's a positive, and it's one of the most important things that you can do. If you aren't receiving the full match from your employer, then you're not getting paid what you should. And more importantly to that, you're not paying yourself what you should. And I think that's the single biggest key to all of this, is paying yourself first. But yeah, that match is huge. You're essentially leveraging your savings efforts through your employer, and you commit so much to longer term savings. Your employer's matching it and giving you even more. So we mentioned how much you save is the biggest important factor in getting to where you want to go. It's disappointing that 22% of people aren't doing the bare minimum of what they should. It's just a multiplier, really. It makes a huge difference.
So, Evan, we're not going to phone a friend. We're not going to poll the audience. We're just going to give people a few good tips. If you're looking to accumulate a large sum of money, maybe your goal is to be that 401k millionaire. What are things people can do?
I love the reference, by the way. That was one of the best shows on TV when I was growing up. And I think I'm showing my age now a little bit, as crazy as that sounds. But yeah, similar to what I mentioned in the last segment, pay yourself first, even when times are tight. If you cut your budget, cut your expense budget. Don't cut your savings budget. There's always creative ways to get where you want to go, and just make sure that you're continuing to pay yourself first, and staying disciplined in that approach. Passively increasing your savings each year, whether that's in the employer plan, if it's in another vehicle, but doing something small each year that you're not going to notice is going to pay huge dividends over time, because inflation is going to continue to eat into what you already have. So we've got to continue to ratchet that up over time. And then you mentioned the risk standpoint. Unless you're a handful of years away from retirement, it's not something that needs to have a lot of your focus. Ignore the headlines. They're meant to drive fear. They're meant to drive clicks, drive profits for other people. It's not something that we need to focus on, because it's going to take care of itself over time. So no need to jump from fund to fund, stock to stock, try to find the next big thing. Just commit to being disciplined in your approach and continuing to just save and control what you can control.
It kind of reinforces the core tenets, doesn't it, that most of our success is determined by our own efforts and our own abilities to focus on things that we need to focus on to get better. And it doesn't matter if you're a musician, an athlete, if you're putting in the work and you're focusing on the right things, good things tend to happen over time. Evan, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to have a copy of this Fidelity study linked on our website, so you can check out some of that information. There's some good stuff in there if you're interested. You can find that on our website. That's cfswd.com. Also, if you'd like to see more, check out our YouTube channel. That's at Commonwealth Financial here on YouTube. And if you like this, hit that like and subscribe. Evan, thanks for joining me. We'll see you all next week.